everybody, and welcome once again to Extraordinary Living. I'm so excited that I have Malvika Sheth with us today. She is the founder of the platform and blog Style by Malvika. She's one of the top up-and-coming fashion influencers according to Pixley, and she's based in LA. And I want to welcome you, Malvika. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. I hear deep conversations are on the agenda, so I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. So, the first thing I'd like to do is invite my guests to share a little bit about yourself. Like, what would you love for us to know about Style by Malvika, or just a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I like to consider myself I think I was born to create, to just be a creative soul. When I was, going through high school, even my elementary school, I was immersed in a lot of different creative pursuits, whether it was dance, piano, even Girl Scouts to an extent allowed me to really play with my creative abilities. And I was very much heavily involved in my extracurriculars. I was still good in school, but I think so much of my life revolved around the things that I did outside of school as well. So then when I went on to college, it was kind of okay, I've lost all of my creative outlets. I need something.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew fashion was one thing that I always used to dream, I wanted to be the next Anna Wintour.
Yeah.
And, it was just a dream of mine since childhood. So I thought, you know what, let me just start something in fashion, maybe a fashion blog or something. And I didn't really do it until my friend she had a poetry blog at the time, and she was like, you're always talking about these other fashion bloggers. You're so good at fashion. You have a genuine passion for it. I think you should share it with people. And I actually am a very introverted person. So to get out there and share things, and it didn't come naturally to me. But I think instead of thinking about how many people are seeing it or who's seeing it, I really just focus on the creative aspect of it and how it just lets me express who I am without having to say much. And I think that's what fashion essentially is you're able to put on an outfit and it can really portray to people what you're feeling that day, what kind of mood you're in. For instance, today, I walked outside this morning, took a walk, and I don't know why I was inspired just by flowers that were around me in my garden. So I was like, maybe we should wear something floral. So that's exactly what I did. And I think that's the beauty of fashion.
Yeah, fashion is, it is all about expression, and a lot of the intention behind ZoeGoes and as I was creating it was to encourage women to really feel like they could express themselves.
Yeah.
And they could do that in any way that felt right for them. Mm-hmm. And I think, the mission is really that everyone be able to explore themselves in travel and, see themselves and themselves in the world without prejudice and limitation.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does it feel like? Who am I and how can I be me?
Yeah.
Right? So I love it. And your creative expression has led you to fashion and fashion blogging. And it's really been fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this show is called Extraordinary Living. And the rest of that conceptually is on your terms. Mm-hmm. And I really want people to understand that they can create extraordinary lives on their terms. So Absolutely. I'd love to ask you, what does your extraordinary life look like? And what are your terms when you think about that?
I think for me, my version of an extraordinary life is one, it's a very simple and cliche answer, but one where you go to sleep feeling fulfilled and wake up excited for the day. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times, so for instance, I went to a business-focused college and all of my friends graduated, got jobs at top firms doing accounting, finance, etc. I felt like it just wasn't me. I got those I focused in marketing and entrepreneurship, but I also had this interest in fashion. And since I had the blog and, it was slowly becoming a business, I was like, you know what? I had graduated a year early. So I was like, you know what? Might as well take this year. Let's turn it into something. Let's really focus on it because this is what I love doing. Whenever I'll be very honest, the last semester of college, I was focused so much more on my blog than I was even in class in school. I was just, everything just became about Style by Malvika and connecting with my audience, creating interesting content. And so I think at that point, I realized that was making me so happy that I knew that that was something that I had to do for longer. There's just this voice inside of me that was like, this is what you were meant to do. This is what you feel good doing. Just do it. And when you listen to your intuition, your gut, you'll end up knowing what is it that makes you, go to sleep feeling fulfilled, and what is it that makes you excited to jump out of bed. And I think that's living an extraordinary life.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that, because I believe that to be true. And it sounds like there's a term that I use on the coaching side of my business called your radical intersection. And it's that place. It's that place where what you love, what you feel called to do, where your curiosities come together with what I call your like physical features, meaning your ethnicity, your geographic location, your age, your sex, your orientation, like all those things come together in this really cool bundle. And you found yours in fashion and connecting to lifestyle related things and expression. And it's beautiful. I love hearing that you found that. Let me ask you a question around that. For people who may not know how to do that.
Yeah.
At the points where you made the decision, you were feeling like, I'm so drawn to this. Was there anything in particular that you had to do to take the leap? Or did it just feel kind of easy and natural for you?
I would say it's a little bit of both. As soon as, I was actually in school when business offers came in for like collaborations. Obviously they weren't like huge or large scale or anything like that. I actually had my first, I think, paid sponsorship with Reebok, and just knowing that Reebok was a brand that I had originally liked, and then, they reached out for a collaboration, and like knowing those small steps to see that, this was progressing into something that could be like, it could provide business. I mean, for the first year when I blogged, it was just out of pure passion. I'm glad that I had that year of just like doing it because I loved it. And then slowly when it started to turn into a business, you just start to realize, okay, maybe there's a certain way in which you can work to strategically amplify it, or work to strategically scale the blog. So once I graduated, I kind of made a little bit of a business plan. And it was more just like, okay, here are the brands that I've been advocating for. It would be great to, start relations with them, figure out who the PR reps are, see if I can send an introduction. So I did have to become a little bit more strategic. It wasn't just like I could just continue what I was doing and not worry about the business side. I did have to worry a little bit about the business side. And then, there have been like different things that I've tried. I think the most important thing when you're starting or running a business is trial and error. A lot of people are, as an entrepreneur, you have to be open to risk. So for instance, for me, I went through a phase where like I had a manager, and that was very recently. And then I realized maybe that's not the best thing for me, because I love to be that person on the front that's connecting with the PRs.
You like the engagement and the connection.
Right. And I just felt like, if I didn't have a manager, maybe I wouldn't have known like the things that I love about doing this besides the creating part. So yeah, I think you do have to take steps to strategically scale. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's the hardest thing in the world, because it's a passion. Yeah.
So there's a level of effortlessness.
Yeah.
Right. That happens when you are following kind of that heartstring. Right. Yeah. But to your point, and Malcolm Gladwell's point, you put your hours in. Yeah. You paid. Yeah. For the time up front you invested in yourself. And that's the other thing we have to be willing to do, is to invest in ourselves, in that process. So it's fantastic. And over time, like you said, you learn things, right? I think you learn in every scenario. The stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't teaches us, right? Yeah. So that was really powerful for you. I love it. I think that's great. That brings us to a conversation around where we are today.
Yeah.
And it's a really unprecedented environment. We all know that, and we're experiencing it in various ways.
Right.
And of course, the situation hasn't affected everybody the exact same way, but I would be curious. It's affected the way we're living. It's affected the way I think we think about how we're going to live.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious, like, what reflections maybe you've had in this time about yourself, about the work that you do, about the industry. You know,
Yeah.
are there things that you feel like this window has brought clarity to you?
I definitely think it has. I think so. I think there are two very important things that are going on right now. Definitely what's happening with Black Lives Matter. That's one thing. And then there's also this whole month, 2 months, 3 months, however long it's been, where we've been, self-isolated due to coronavirus. So I'll start with coronavirus. I have, during this period of staying home, really, really focused on making sure that my content isn't just about where I'm going, where I am, that kind of stuff. I honestly want to provide value to someone who is looking for fashion and beauty inspiration. I think a lot of times with Instagram, what happens is, there are certain trendy places and trendy, like how to shoot like a street style outfit and stuff like that. Those might be visually appealing, or it might just like allow someone some sense of like escapism when they see you in that place. But I think my main goal was to always inspire someone in terms of how to create a beauty look that goes with your outfit, or how to do makeup in like 5-10 minutes when you don't have time, how to put something together when you're lacking inspiration and you just walk in your closet and you're like, I need something quick.
Like, what am I gonna, I'm not inspired by anything today.
Exactly. So I want someone to be able to go to my page and like, just like save things, or like look at it and be like, okay, I'll just wear something like that, or I'll do something like that. Instead of just like creating this whole thing about like, so the term brand building, right? I think for me, I create a lot of luxury type content. It's more focused towards luxury, but I realized before the coronavirus, I was so much like focused on like the locations I was shooting at and stuff like that, where it really became less about the fashion and more about just creating this like escapism kind of vibe where if you went on so I think now it's much more focused on the outfits, the makeup, practical tips, practical solutions. And then I'll also say my opportunities have really shifted because of coronavirus. So a lot of my sponsorships that were planned to go live, I think after February or after beginning of March, like those were either canceled or indefinitely postponed. But at the same time, I still feel very grateful that I can continue doing what I love. Instead of those sponsorships on my page, I've been given a lot of opportunities to be like a creator for different platforms and different brands. So I still get to do what I love, which is amazing. And I just feel very blessed because I know that there are so many people that are out of jobs. And I just, like, even my friends who I would have graduated this past May had I taken the 4 years, but I actually graduated in 3 years. So my friends who graduated, a lot of them like had jobs lined up and then, because of the situation, now have nothing. So yeah, I just feel very blessed. So yeah, I've taken this time to think about how to provide practical value and tips. And I've also just like the opportunities and the things that I do as a content creator, as opposed to just posting on my Instagram and doing sponsorships like that. I'm creating a lot of beauty videos for different platforms and stuff like that. So that's what's kind of changed. And then in terms of the whole Black Lives Matters movement, I really have tried to make this a conversation that isn't just trendy, because I genuinely feel like in order to like actually affect change and actually give African Americans the, same opportunities, the same support, the same, sense of equality and the same sense of belonging in our society, we really need to learn how to educate ourselves so that moving forward and for eternity, we aren't silent. We aren't, we don't just stay silent when we hear something or when we see something. We really have to be active, proactive. And so what I've done is I'm working on like Instagram stories is I think where people really like to know more about what I'm doing. So I like to share how I'm educating myself. I like to share different like African-American owned brands that I'm supporting. I like to share. I'm not really afraid of getting political at this point because I think this is past politics. It's more about,
it's past politics.
It's way past politics. It's more about like humanity. And I just want to listen, and I want to listen, and I want to amplify the voices that need to be heard. So.
Yeah, I love that and appreciate it. It's when this a couple weeks ago, it became clear to me that that this was Black Lives Matter is really the spark for an even broader kind of humanitarian, effort and issue. And those people who are making the choices like the ones you're making are the way showers, and they're committing to permanent change.
Yeah.
Committing to things being different and really pushing the concept of equality.
Yeah.
Right. And as hard as this is, I am deeply appreciative of what's coming out of it. So I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that, because that's the only way that we can address or begin to address systemic change. And I also talk about, like, we all have a sphere of influence, right? Even if it's just one person. So within that sphere, what actions can you take? What conversations can you have? How can you change your frame of point of view, really? And be a little vulnerable, about to better understand and take a stand. So each one in our own sphere of influence taking a stand is ultimately powerful. Movements actually don't happen in some big ball running. They happen when small pockets pop up all over, almost like popcorn. And all those little popcorn balls start moving in one direction. And the next thing you know, you've got momentum. So wherever that sphere of influence is, right?
And I would say, like, I've also seen that, this conversation is happening very largely online, but I just hope that people are also taking it back to real life and taking it back to real circumstances. I shared with my audience that, like, I've been having conversations with my family on, how we can learn to say something if we hear something or see something. And I think even, like, within my family, there probably have been instances where I've seen or heard something and I haven't said something. So I told them, like, guys, certain things that we hear or we say, if we see this, if we hear this, we really need to step in. So we try to have, like, conversations in the family as well. Just because I think it starts there, it starts with the people that are closest to you. And it
does. So it's awesome. Thanks. Ooh, deep breath, right?
Yeah.
So style and fashion are your worlds. And I'm a Black woman who launched a sustainable brand during COVID. And I started
Kudos to you for that. You are like amazing. That is everything you just said. Like, you must have worked really hard in order for this to have really come to what it is. So given all those, you said, like, during COVID and all these things, kudos to you.
Oh, thank you. And I actually, at the end of the day, have not been dismayed by that fact, because the brand is perfect for the window that we're in. I actually don't know that I could have set myself up any better.
Okay.
Being a woman, being a Black woman, designing a brand for a sustainable future, right? Living into ease and comfort and a level of minimalism that opens flow in our lives. I mean, I don't know. It's really been something. But I've been following the business of fashion.
Yeah, love that.
And Diversity and inclusion is a really interesting conversation that there hasn't been a lot of conversation around. With all of the interviews and the reflections on the industry, do you have any like predictions or any kind of observations when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the industry? Because some are taking a hard line, like we're not changing, we're sticking to the way things have always been. I think that's Gucci's stand. And there are others that are saying, you know what, I think we're gonna have to do this a little differently. Even Anna Wintour said, you know, the industry has changed forever.
Yeah.
So like, what are your thoughts? This is your world. What are you thinking and feeling?
So in terms of diversity and inclusion, I'll just give a little bit of an anecdote. When I was, I traveled for Fashion Week. I've been doing it for, I think I've done 3 seasons so far. Every time I go, and I mean, I always feel out of place. Every time I go, I feel out of place. And the most recent trip that I took, there was a photographer that was, you know, he came up to me and he was like, and it was 12 p.m. already. The shows start early, so a lot of them, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I mean,
morning.
Right. So he came up to me and he was like, "You're the first person of color I've seen. I'm only taking pictures of people of color, and like I barely have any. Can you please like, can I please take one?" I was like, "Of course." And then I thought about that for a second, and then I looked in front of me in the line, and there were no people like in the line to get into the show. There were no people of color. And then I mindfully started looking at it. Like every show I went to, it was very hard to spot a person of color. And I always thought, I don't know, maybe it's because of the people that I follow on social media, but I always thought that fashion was one of the better industries in terms of diversity and inclusion. But it turns out, if you actually look in real life, it may not be. And I do think the more we can have the conversation about diversity and inclusion, and the more brands, companies, businesses in the fashion industry are open to having at least the conversation, the better it is. Because things start with conversations. If you're closed off to even a conversation, then I mean, to me, that's like just turning an ignorant eye, turning a blind eye, and it never really helps. You are a part of this larger world, this larger universe. If you want the universe and the world to get better, then you need to be okay having the conversations in order to get there.
And it's a fascinating challenge, because we're also, because of the situation, the Black Lives Matter, you know, conversations that are happening. It is kind of the perfect time for that to get raised as an issue in the industry as well. And it will be very interesting to see those allies that actually kind of put their money where their mouth is versus the ones that actually don't show up. So it may be a little early to really have any strong predictions around what might change, but I would love to see people of color behind the scenes, like making things happening and making things happen. You know, it's time. It's really time. Do you have any, you know, sustainability is the other area, and as you purvey, like a lot of the sneaker brands have been using recycled materials for a long time. You may have seen that with Reebok. You may have seen it, you know, with some of your other collabs. But what's your thought on sustainability going forward for the industry?
I think sustainability is key. I mean, as a consumer, I'm always conscious, like, so I actually was born and brought up a vegetarian, and I only very, very recently in life, I would say 4 or 5 years back, actually understood the power of like knowing what you consume, and that's even beyond what you eat. The things that you purchase, the things that you, wherever you spend money, you are responsible. Like you have to be a little bit responsible, right? So sustainability as a whole is quite important to me. I make fewer purchases. I make purchases that last a lot longer, and that I think that's why I've had that interest in luxury, because when I buy something, it's more than just, you know, like I like this, I'm gonna buy it. what's the fabric? Where was it made? Is this something that will last me for several years? And I think that's where you can kind of start thinking about sustainability. But then you kind of get into, okay, like as like probably for you as a sustainable brand, you're looking at like maybe new fabrics. There have been so many new fabrics that are coming out that are less conventional, you know, and much more sustainable. So I'm always open to hearing those. Whenever a brand comes up and you know, it says sustainable or it has something to do with sustainability, as a consumer, I get extremely curious. I go into doing my research. And then I think that's where it starts, right? You have to be curious and you have to be willing to, like, open to that information in order to affect change in the way that you purchase things. So yeah.
Yeah, what I found in my research before I launched the brand is that people are definitely amenable to it. Well, this was a year ago, right? So in my conversations, people were always amenable to it, but they acknowledged that it wasn't a conscious, they weren't consciously looking for sustainable brands. Right. But if the brand happened to be sustainable, we're like, oh, okay, that's great. Yeah. You know, like it's a plus.
Like a plus.
Yeah. And I think the tides are turning with that level of consciousness. You know, I think that people are starting to really think. And honestly, I think this window is contributing to that. I think people are thinking about the earth. I think they're thinking about things that are maybe not as guaranteed as we tend to live, right? Like it's guaranteed. And that's resulting in some other decisions. And when people start to hear some of the scary stories about waste and carbon emissions, and people, their eyes get really big and they're like, wow, I had no idea. So it will be really interesting. I think about a year ago, Zara made the commitment to being fully sustainable in like 5 years or something.
Yeah.
And so when you've got a fast fashion brand, you know, as popular as that one, saying, you know what, we're really looking at this. I think that's what also helps to build momentum around the industry. So it's it's really interesting, because on the flip side of that, or a corollary to that, would be kind of like clean brands. And I know you recently done some blogs on clean beauty. I have I've had a couple of years in cosmetics as well, so I'm familiar with the industry. Like, what are you seeing? What are some tips? What are some of your favorite like beauty tips for women trying to just like not overdo it?
Yeah, I think, so the most important thing for me is so clean beauty for me, I start with skincare. I think having clean products in skincare is the most important, because that's the first thing that goes on your face. So, I mean, some brands that I'm really loving right now, Tata Harper's one, Clarins has they have a new line called My Clarins, which is, I don't think it's that new, but like, it's a good line. It's completely vegan. That all the ingredients are things that you can pronounce. They're actual like figs and like actual things that
you can almost eat it, right?
Right. So I always start with skincare that has like real proper ingredients. And I think that's the most important thing. If you have hydrated skin, if your skin is looking good, then you really don't need that much makeup. So that's most important. And then in terms of we'll get into a little bit of like the actual makeup. The first things that go in your skin, it's important that those are clean. So like after you do your skincare, if you're using a foundation, make sure that foundation doesn't have any harsh chemicals or anything like that. So I think it's just really simple. Just knowing, the same way we want to know exactly what we're eating, what we're consuming in our body, we should also know what's going on our skin, because it's just as important. So
the way I like to think about that is reminding myself that your skin is the largest organ in your body. You know, and what's so interesting is that most people will think about neck up, and they'll take fabulous care of their face, right? Like, or their face and neck, that it's it's so funny to me, and then completely neglect the rest of their body. I mean,
That's
I make my own body cleansing cream because
oh wow,
I started thinking like, why am
amazing.
I ignoring the rest of my body? And so many
Yeah,
things made my skin really dry. Like I would
yeah,
step out of the shower and still feel dry. I'm like,
right.
ah, forget it. So I
Mm,
started blending a couple years ago. And I
mm,
think it's really interesting the point you make about consuming,
yeah,
right? It's not just what we're eating. I think if
yeah,
people could see what was going on in their bodies with what they were eating, if it
yeah,
showed on the outside, they would be horrified
yeah.
by what's going on the inside.
Inside. Yeah,
So yeah, skin, food, all of it.
yeah. Oh, one more quick tip.
Yeah,
Coconut oil is amazing. You can use it. I mean, for most people, it's pretty safe unless you have some allergy to it or anything. But
right.
use it on your face. Use it all over your body. It's a great moisturizer. You can even use it in your hair.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
I know
good.
it's like the super ingredient or
Yeah,
food or whatever, because
yeah,
between you can cook with it, you can use it for your skin and
yeah,
hydration, your hair. I agree with you. It's
yeah,
you have always have it on the shelf, so to
yeah.
speak.
And it's the
Good
most
one.
inexpensive if you don't want to like splurge on
I
expensive creams and
know,
stuff.
it's
So
true. Yeah. Okay, I'll leave my political comment about that until, some pharma company decides that they need to like own coconut oil production or something. Um, I want to talk a little bit about, you've had the opportunity to work with some pretty significant partners, Jimmy Choo, Clarins, Givenchy Beauty, Reebok, Essie, Lancome.
yeah.
Talk a little bit about how you built those relationships and what that's just meant to you.
Yeah. So I think it was very important to me right off the bat to partner in the beginning, at least, with only brands that I had been using. And
Mm,
these were all brands that I had been using. I mean, when it came to Lancome, I had always been using their foundation.
mm-hmm,
And then, so there are these things called like influencer platforms or
mm-hmm,
influencer marketplaces or whatever. And
mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I started. I put my profile on there, and then most of these campaigns came through there. And I think, I mean, I can't speak on their behalf, but I think the reason that they chose me as a partner is because I had already been an organic advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's just really important to stay true to who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And when it comes to brand partnerships, take on the ones that you really believe in. Like you truly have to believe in it. Otherwise, your audiences, they're way too smart. Like they know when you're just saying something like, okay,
To be
you
saying
need
it.
to be like, you in order to sustain yourself, obviously sometimes you have to take on sponsorships. That's a given. But if you take on one that's completely out of what you're normally talking about, then it just comes across as really inauthentic, and it doesn't, people remember that. People
Yeah.
do remember, yeah. So you need to be careful about like your brand partners and who you choose.
Yeah, they'll remember it and they'll kind of smell a rat. Like,
Yeah,
this seems out of your brand personality,
yeah,
right? Out of tone,
yeah,
and people consumers are incredibly sophisticated these days.
yeah,
They're like, ugh, no, that doesn't seem right. So
yeah.
I got it. Like, and that's not a bad philosophy for life,
Mm-hmm.
too. It's like
Yeah,
advocate for what you believe in.
believe in. Yeah,
Yeah, and just let that be your marching orders in any aspect of your life. So
yeah.
yeah, that's brilliant. What what are maybe some of your favorite go-to uh clothing style tips? Like if you were trying to get the most bang for your buck
Mm-hmm.
in an area, maybe that's a hard question to answer, but like what are just some of your favorites? Like
So
when you're
I yeah, I think it starts with knowing, you have to know what silhouettes really suit you. For me, like I think a lot of indie women may, uh, and I think generally, I think a lot of people of color, but again, everyone has a different body type. But like I think a lot of Indian women have smaller waists and then bigger hips. So you have to know how to accentuate that maybe. So
Mhm.
you wear a lot of high-waisted things. I love high-waisted things.
Yeah, me too.
You just got to know what areas like work for you, what you like to accentuate, and you know, what other things you want a little bit more baggy or loose or comfortable. So I always look, number one, at the shape of what I'm buying. It has to be something that I won't feel uncomfortable wearing. Like for instance, I'm okay with off shoulders because I think, you know, my shoulders aren't like super big, they're more on the smaller side, and I like to kind of just accentuate that. So yeah, I think know what silhouettes suit you. It starts there. And then things that I think are always a good buy, a nice white top, as you can see I'm wearing one today. Can't go wrong. You can style that so many different ways. And I love designer logo tees. Those are fun because you can, you know, sometimes you can just literally, even if you're going out for like a brunch or a lunch and you really don't want to wear something too fussy, wear like a nice designer logo tee tucked into jeans, and then, you know, you look a little bit classy.
And throw on a great shoe.
Yeah.
And you can change the way something looks just by the shoes that you're wearing with it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's one of those cheats. I want to back you up a little bit and talk about how someone might determine what might be a right silhouette for them.
Yeah. So I think the honest answer is trial and error. Actually, I'll give you a little bit of background. I grew up quite on the heavy side. I was in middle school. I think my heaviest, I was probably like 160, 165 pounds. And I'm 5'4". So I was on the hefty side. I remember even then, like even when I was bigger and even now, like your body type doesn't really change as much. There's still, you know, the areas that you're comfortable accentuating and the areas that you aren't. So the same thing has really stuck. Then I really, really was trying to figure out, I was very experimental with my fashion because I think that's the zone. That was the time when I was like,
it's the age.
Maybe I wasn't, it was the age. Maybe I wasn't as comfortable with myself. I used fashion maybe to hide certain areas, which I think everyone should really embrace the way that they look and the way that they are. So, but I was young and, you know, I was experimenting with fashion to kind of, you know, how can I make sure like my stomach doesn't show too much and things like that. So having experimented then really helps me now in knowing just what cuts suit my body. So I think it comes down to trial and error. No two bodies are the same. Someone could say, like I said, like I like to accentuate my waist, and a lot of Indian women, you know, we have smaller waists and like bigger hips, but that's not true for every Indian woman. I mean, so I think you have to try it for yourself.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, that's great advice. It's great advice because here's what I'm discovering, and I'm relatively new to the industry, but as I do demos with people, there's so many people, I designed the line to be really kind to multiple body types. Wrap top gives you a lot of flexibility, you know, you can tuck it in or not tuck it in. And I have elasticized waists in both the skirt and the pants and deep pockets, right? So that you can feel really functional. And the number of women who thought they would not be able, I had an amazing model that shot for my samples. She's gorgeous. And you could put her in a plastic bag and she would probably still look great. But the number of women who thought they wouldn't be able to wear the clothes surprised me.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something that happens. You talked about a stage, like high school, college, you're kind of trying to, you know, you're, like you said, you're experimenting, you're figuring it out. And then I think, especially women get set. They get a idea in their head about what they can and can't do. And then I saw this in cosmetics too. And then they become afraid to try something new.
Yeah.
Or something that they may be drawn to. They're like, oh yeah, I really like the way that looks, but they won't touch it.
Do it on themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't feel like they can take that on. So I just want to underscore what you're saying and really encourage women to continue to experiment.
Yeah.
And to try things and to especially try things that they feel drawn to. Like, absolutely. I really love the way that looks, or I like the color. I love the cut. I want to, you know, that particular style of pant or dress. Try it on.
Try it on.
and
And
be gentle with yourself.
yeah, I mean, I think my biggest like fashion icons, inspirations, like Iris Apfel. Look at her. I mean,
Oh,
she tries so, and she looks amazing because genuinely,
amazing.
I think what you wear, if it makes you happy and you know, that feeling of trying something new, having conquered it, and then when you step out wearing it, my gosh, that's it. It shows
Attitude is
on your
everything.
face.
Right,
Yeah.
it does. And it
Yeah.
changes the way something looks
Yeah.
on you.
Mhm.
And there are things that you might never wear, but the person that's wearing it is like loving it. You're
Loving
like,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that looks really great on you. So
Yeah.
it all kind of circles back to like, do you? Do you
Yeah.
stand for yourself? You
Yeah.
know, kind of honor the things that speak to you,
Mhm.
you know, whether it's what you believe about humanity or whether it's the stuff you want to put on your face.
Yeah.
Like do that.
Yeah.
Right? Do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we finish up, because I could talk to you for hours, I
Honestly,
want to
I'm
ask
enjoying this conversation.
I want to ask you please let us know how people can follow you. If there's something new you have going on, a new project, something you want us to be on the lookout for, you know, what should we know?
Okay, so my main channel is Instagram. I think that's where um, I built, my biggest, I guess,
Yep.
portfolio, you could say, started there. And I post every day. I'm always on my stories. But in addition to that, as I mentioned during this time, I've gotten opportunities to create for different brands and apps and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I've recently joined the following apps: Prism Pop, Zin, and LiveMe. So for Prism Pop, I create like very educational and like very like beauty hacks, tips, things like that.
Mhm.
They're beauty videos that are anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. So they're very quick. If you don't have time and you just need a beauty hack or something like that,
Yeah.
Prism Pop is
Awesome.
great. Zen is more just fun. I create just funny, crazy, stupid videos kind of thing. It's kind of like TikTok, very similar.
Yeah.
And then LiveMe, I live stream. So usually I'm live streaming while I do my makeup daily. I live stream about 1 hour every day.
Okay.
And it's really fun because I experiment with my makeup quite a bit. So I kind of get to do that whilst other people are watching and giving comments. And it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
That's
So
fun. It's
those
a fun way to engage.
It is. It really
Mhm.
is. And then, like even today, I went live when I was doing my makeup, and someone was telling me to put a little bit of green in my eyeshadow, so I did that.
Oh, nice.
So it was fun. And then I also have my main. Let's go back to my main channels. I have Instagram, my website, and YouTube. Those are my mains. And then
Right.
the newer ones are
Post
Prism
that.
Pop, Live Me, and Zin. And in terms of new things coming up, I mean, I think there are a few conversations going on, but nothing I can like
Talk
solidly
about yet.
say yet.
Mhm.
So yeah, just keep an eye out. I'm sure very interesting things will be coming soon. So
Yeah, well, we will definitely stay in touch and keep
yes,
following you. And
yes.
as fun stuff, I will be sharing it with all of my folks. So it's
Thank you.
been awesome.
It's
I
been
have
awesome,
so
and thank you
enjoyed
so
this.
much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm really excited for the whole ZoeGoes line. Again, kudos to you, and
Thanks.
it's great you're doing something sustainability as well, because honestly, the more we talk about sustainability, the more the conversation happens, the better it is for the earth. And maybe the bigger players, like we were mentioning earlier, the bigger players can take notice and also kind of work towards more sustainability.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.